Yo, what's up, boys? It's Betta-ah here with a guide on the build that I'm currently playing for Path of Exile 2's early access, being fire-based minions on the Witch Infernalist that deals absurd amounts of damage to enemies and bosses while having really good clear speed. Plus, it's a safe playstyle as your minions get to do most of the work, and it's arguably its best defense, while you get to focus on dodging and positioning instead. The most of our damage and clear speed comes from the skeletal arsonists, which fire 3 projectiles each, and as we've got 10 of them, that is 30 projectiles fired every 1.2 seconds, so it ends up just covering the screen in projectiles. And these projectiles can also shotgun enemies, which is where the absurd amounts of damage actually does come from. I'm also taking advantage of the Raging Spirits paired with Infernal Legion to deal fire damage over time, and minion instability to blow them up when they do reach 15% HP. In order to summon these, I'm using Flame Wall, which summons 5 Raging Spirits per Flame Wall, and it also applies extra damage for our Arsonists projectiles when they do go through the Flame Wall, further increasing our overall damage. To buff our fire damage even further, the Inferno Hound from our Ascendancy applies fire exposure that goes well with our flammability curse to reduce enemy resistances, and our Hound also has Culling Strike, which will instantly kill enemies that are normal at 30%, HP, magic at 20%, rares at 10%, and uniques at 5% as well. A Storm Mage applies permanent shocks to enemies. This is mostly for rares and for bosses, which increases the overall amount of damage that they take from all of our minions, which further increases our total damage pool. Pain Offering is used, giving minions more damage, increased attack speed, and rage generation for even more damage. In terms of sustain, I'm using Grim Feast, which will spawn remnants after your enemies have been killed or your minions have been killed. And picking up these remnants will give huge chunks of extra energy shield when picked up. These will be the small little white flames that you'll see on screen. You just need to run over them and gather them up. And this will double your total energy shield pool from what it originally is. And we also have a little bit of life regeneration and mana regeneration. And then alongside with that, we mostly have our health and mana potions to keep us topped up. Mobility wise, Shield Charge gives us extra mobility so we can get around much quicker, and also that way we can traverse or backtrack in our maps without having to take too much time running around. Before I continue, should you need any help or maybe have questions, please do pop into my community Discord or drop by my Twitch channel, as I'm always willing to help. As a bonus, for a limited time, if you want a wicked cool looking Chimera pet in game, you can go ahead and gift 2 subscriptions on Twitch to get it. Just do make sure that your accounts are linked in order to get the pet, should you choose to do so. Please drop a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, as it helps me out a lot. For the build's playstyle, it is super simple. All you need to do is just cast your Flame Wall 1 and 2. You'll have to recast it every 3 seconds after your Raging Spirits have popped and died. And then all you need to do is just make sure these are in front of your arsonists. That way their projectiles are able to gain that additional damage. And then now and then, whenever you can, you need to make sure to use your Pain Offering. Just do make sure that you're using it on one of your arsonists all the way in the back. This is so that they can get the buff with the rage, the more damage, and the additional attack speed as well. And then on rares or even bosses as well, mainly bossing, you should use your flammability to further increase your total damage output. You can use it on rares and that, but the rares do die pretty quickly, although some of them do tend to be a bit tanky. But yeah, just make sure you're casting your Flame Wall in front of your arsonists and that, using your Pain Offering when you can on your arsonists, and then the flammability for the additional damage. And then obviously for movement and mobility and that, you can use Shield Charge. This helps you just get around much quicker, and it does have a pretty decent recharge speed as well. Quickly going over our skill gems and our supports. Firstly is the Summon Infernal Hound, which deals fire damage to all enemies around it. So we are using Magnified Effect to further increase the area of this. And the reason why we're doing this is because we're using fire exposure, because it's igniting all enemies around it. It is applying the fire exposure. And then alongside that, I'm also using Strip Away, which further increases the exposure effect. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm using Culling Strike just to cull enemies to get rid of them much quicker. Our next skill gem that we're using is the Raging Spirits. With this, I've got Feeding Frenzy, so they can deal more damage and they will take more damage. The reason why you want them to take more damage is because of Infernal Legion, so they burn for 20% of their maximum life. This way, they can end up popping much quicker. Otherwise, their duration is going to expire and then they won't end up exploding through minion instability, whereby when they reach 15% of their max life, they will explode, dealing fire damage. And then paired with this, I just have Fire Penetration for the time being. I'm still experimenting with different supports, but Fire Penetration seems to be the best so far. Next up is our Skeleton or Arsonists. Over here, I'm using a Scatter Shot for the 2 additional projectiles. And then because we are losing some attack speed, I'm pairing it with Martial Tempo so they have more attack speed. And now, contrary to belief, you'll think that these are spellcasters, and they are not spellcasters. They are actually attack based on that. That's why we can use Martial Tempo. And then along with that, I'm using Immolate so they can deal 30% of their total extra damage as fire damage against ignited enemies. And because they are always ignited from our Inferno Hound and our Summon Raging Spirits, that way we are always gaining this benefit. And also, the reason why this support is so good is because our Firebomb is dealing both physical and fire, and then along with that, a little bit of extra lightning damage as well, which I'm getting from my Scepter currently. And then for the 4th support, I'm currently using Concentrated Effect for the 40% more area damage. Obviously, because there is the downfall of the 50% less area of effect, I'm getting this in the skill tree, but I will get to that in a little bit. With the setup, I'm running one Skeletal Mage. This is for the potent shock that it applies via conduction, whereby it has got 100% more chance to shock. And then I'm pairing this with Stormfire, so our shocks are infinite against ignited enemies. And because our other enemies and because our other allies and that are always igniting enemies, our shock will never ever expire. And then along with this, I'm also using Overcharge for the increased magnitude of shocks, making the shock much more potent. For our last minion that I'm using is just a Skeletal Cleric. This is just so it can revive fallen skeletons in that. That way our Arsonists have a higher uptime should they be killed. And then I'm using increased cooldown recovery rate so they can revive our allies much quicker. And then along with that, I'm also using Last Grasp, whereby when they reach 0 health, they will still be up for an additional 4 seconds. This just gives the additional uptime of them. So once again, we can have additional uptime of our Arsonists. Pain Offering provides the aura for the 30% increased attack speed for our minions and the 45% more damage. And then I'm further increasing the effect of this with Ablation, which gives 30% increased effect. The sacrifice of 15% of our life doesn't matter, and that it is not really an issue. And then I'm using Persistence just so it has a higher uptime. That way we don't have to spam it all too much. So that way it's a little bit more mana savvy. And then for our Flame Wall, I'm using Inspiration for the 40% less cost. This way it's much easier to spam without having to worry about your mana regeneration all that much. And then Fortress, so it creates a circle. This is so that it has got much more coverage. That way our Arsonists' projectiles have a higher chance to be going through it, and that. It's just more so of a quality of life thing that I like. And then I'm using Mobility. This is so that while we are casting, we will have 40% less movement speed penalty. And as movement speed is a huge deal in this game and you want to be mobile the whole time, and that this does help out and make it feel way less clunky while you are throwing your flame walls everywhere. For your Flammability Curse, which makes enemies have 35% less fire resistance, I'm using Heightened Curse, which increases the effects of it. And then along with that, I'm just using Ritualistic Curse for the increased area of effect. Just to be warned that this increases the delay of it. So you'll see that it builds up first and then it will pop. So do just keep that in mind, that it's not instant and it does take around about almost 2 seconds before it actually does apply the curse. And then Grim Feast has got a 50% chance to spawn one of these little White Flame Remnants, which will recover 279 energy shield when picked up. This is when a minion dies or an enemy dies in your presence. And then along with this, I'm just using Clarity for additional mana regeneration for the time being. And then I'm using Vitality, giving some extra life regeneration alongside with that. With shield charge, at the moment, I'm just using Unbreakable, so it has got more stun threshold. This way, when you do charge into a pack of enemies and that, you can still dodge roll away and not instantly get obliterated. And then I'm also using Maim for the time being, just to slow them down, so that way you can get away a little bit quicker. For your Ascendancy, the very, very first thing that you need to get is the Hellhound, as this does a lot of damage, and it takes 20% of all damage from hits that you take to its life instead. So this is another defensive mechanic for us. And then for additional defense, for your second lab, you must pick up Altered Flesh. This enables us to take 20% of cold and lightning as fire damage, and then 20% of physical damage as chaos damage. Obviously, this is really, really good when you do have higher resistances. Unfortunately, at the moment, I'm not capped out on resistance because I haven't really paid that much attention to my gear for the time being. And then for the skill tree early on, starting off, going through the campaign and that, you'll be picking up all of these minion nodes over here for the additional damage and some attack and cast speed, and then moving your way up over here to Gravedigger, so minions can revive much, much quicker. And you also gain 2% of life when your minions are revived. This is just for additional sustain. It's not that superior or that amazing, but it is pretty cool to have. And then the necrotized flesh gives minions additional life. And then I also pick up Fear of Death for additional minion accuracy, and Relentless Fallen for additional movement speed and attack speed for our minions. And then thereafter, you should pick up Living Death once again, so minions can revive faster, and the additional life. And then thereafter, you should go ahead and pick up Restless Dead for, once again, minions can revive faster. And then you'll grab Growing Swarm for the increased area of effect and the cooldown recovery rate. And then thereafter, you'll work your way up and grab Lord of Horrors, so that way your minions have got 12% reduced reservation, so you can reserve extra spirit to gain additional minions. And then after that, pick up Left Hand of Darkness for some additional physical reduction and additional chaos resistance for our minions. And then from there on, what you want to do is come on over to the left side over here and pick up Holy Protector for additional minion life once again, and Bringer of Order for minion damage. And then once you have got all of those, I would recommend coming down and getting Deadly Swarm for the increased damage once again, and then grabbing Bolstering Presence. The reason why you want to grab Bolstering Presence for the increased effect of auras over here is because it increases the effect of Pain Offering, which goes hand in hand with the support that we are running with Ablation as well, making the buff way more potent for our minions. And then thereafter, all I did was just pick up some additional energy shield and that for the time being over here and over here as well. You can go ahead and pick up anything that you want. If you want, you can even get like armor and that stuff and that, or even additional skill effect duration will be pretty good for our Pain Offering and our Flammability Curse, but it's not really that necessary. One thing I do just want to note, please do not take any of the minion elemental resistance nodes in the tree, being Silent Guardian or Crystalline Flesh, or even the one up top here and that, because we want our Raging Spirits to take as much fire damage as possible in order for them to actually blow up. If you do take resistance in that, then they won't end up blowing up, so then you are just losing out on a lot of damage. Alright, quickly going over our gear, you must be using a scepter for the baseline spirit that it provides you with. You can also put quality onto it to further increase the amount of spirit gained. And then, of course, you need to try and get the percent increased spirit. And then, along with that, any additional attack damage like fire, lightning, or cold is pretty beneficial. But the main thing that you want to focus on with your scepter is the plus level to all minion skills. You don't need a +4 like I've got. These are fairly expensive at the moment. You can settle for a +3 or even a +2 with any other modifiers. And then obviously the minions have increased maximum life is pretty beneficial for our minions to have a higher life pool, especially our raging spirits, so they can deal more damage when they do explode. And then for the helmet, what you're looking for is just some life, some resistance, and mainly the +1 to level of all minion skills. This can also go up to +2 to minion level of skills. For your amulet, you want to get one that's got some spirit on it, so that way you can get additional minions, and then maybe some strength as well, and dexterity, just so you've got enough dexterity and strength to use all of the required supports. And then moving on to the shield. Once again, all you need is just some life and some resistance over here. Nothing special. And then for the boots, you just need a little bit of movement speed. I would recommend getting as much movement speed as possible instead of having a life roll on them alongside any elemental resistances and that. And the reason why I recommend getting movement speed is because the faster you're able to move around in that, the less clunky the game's going to feel, and the easier you can get away from projectile attacks and like AoE and other mechanics in that. For your belt, the base really doesn't make a difference. All that you need here is, once again, just some life and then some resistance as well. I do just want to note that getting life regeneration on gear does feel pretty good. And maybe you can also get some additional dexterity or even intelligence on the belt or the boots or anywhere on your gear pieces. And then for the gloves, once again, is just life. And then I've got some chaos resistance just to bring up my chaos res pool over here. If you can, try and get chaos resistance on your gear, but it can be fairly expensive, just to be warned. And then for my rings, I'm just using a topaz here for some resistance and some life. And then for my other ring, once again, is just resistance and life again. And then for the chest piece is very, very important. I'm using the Enfolding Dawn. This gives +100 to spirit. This is so that I'm able to get up to 400 spirit with my max pool. This way I can have all of my minions in that. However, don't worry if you cannot get such high spirit. Having like 8 or even 7 arsonists will be perfectly fine. You do not have to stress about having 10 like I do. One thing I do just want to note about this chest piece is you don't have to actually get it, and that you can end up settling for a rare one like I've got over here. That's just got the spirit implicit along with some spirit and some extra maximum life and cold resistance. And then you can also get one that's got a hybrid with armor and energy shield, just improving your overall survivability. However, it will probably end up requiring a high amount of strength should you have the additional strength on your gear, and that then you can go ahead and pick up one of these instead. For your flasks and that, all you basically need is just the increased amount recovered and increased charges. This way you can spam it when needed. And the same goes for your mana flask. Increased amount recovered and increased charges gained is pretty damn good. And then for your charm, I would recommend using an amethyst charm. This way you can just gain additional chaos resistance when you do take poison damage or chaos damage as well. But this is not really that necessary if you do have chaos resistance on your gear. And lastly, as a bonus, my current Atlas tree that I am running, the first nodes that I picked up was the increased pack size, and then the rising danger for the increased rare monsters found in your maps, and then the rare packs and the twin threats. This is so that the more rare monsters you have, the more loot you can get. And now after the loot has been buffed in that, I've seen a significant change in having these nodes in that. I highly recommend picking them up. And then I have gone up top here to get a 20% chance to have a higher tier of waystones dropped. And then along with that, I've got Teeming Horde for the increased number of monster packs. Once again, just increasing density for more drops and more experience. And then I picked up Local Knowledge over here. So swamp and water biomes will have 40% increased chance to drop currency. I can confirm that this is really, really good because I did a swamp biome and I managed to drop 8 exalts in just one map, which was really, really good. And then mountain biomes give 40% increased chance to drop gold. This is also pretty damn good. When I was in a mountain biome, I was getting lots of gold. And then forest biomes is 40% chance to drop jewels. I haven't really done forest biomes all too much, so I don't know how well this works. And then desert biomes is the increased chance to drop barriers and inscribed ultimatums for lab and that stuff. I can confirm that when you are in a desert biome, that you're guaranteed to pretty much get at least one of these to drop per map. And then grass biomes give a 40% increased chance to drop socket currency. When I was in a grass biome, I did manage to drop a greater jeweler. That way I was able to put it on my arsonists, and then I managed to drop another one after that in the grass biome, and then I'll put that onto my raging spirits. Alright, and that is it for this video, Exiles. Should you have enjoyed it, please do make sure that you drop a like or even a comment on the video, and subscribe if you're not yet subscribed to my channel. And also do remember, if you do need any help, pop over into my Discord or my Twitch channel. Other than that, thanks for watching, Exile, and I'll see you in the next video or live stream.